Masechet Pesachim Daf Sadi Aleph, a bunch of interesting cases about someone who right now can participate in Korban Pesach, but there's a problem because they're in a situation where at night they may or may not be able to participate in Korban Pesach. They're not sure. So in these cases, when they are allowed to have someone prepare Korban Pesach for them, because the likelihood is that they will be okay. So we have five categories here. Ha'onen. Onen means someone who lost a loved one on that day. So let's say, for example, they lost a loved one in the morning. And then they're going to do, they're participating in Korban Pesach, which will be performed at 3 p.m., the slaughter and all that. And then, the burial will not be till 4 p.m. later on. And so, as an onen, they may not participate and eat kodashim, but that's not the problem because by the time the night comes, they'll be in avel, and avel can. The problem is they're not sure if during the burial they will need to handle the body and become tameh, or if there's other people there that will do it and he can remain tahor. So since there's a good likelihood that he will remain tahor, therefore, they are allowed, his other people are allowed to perform the Korban Pesach on his behalf, and he fulfills his obligation. Second category, mefakech et hagal. If a house fell on someone, we're not sure if they're alive or not underneath. And you are the searcher looking for them. And so now 3 p.m. comes along and you're still searching for the body and you don't know if it's there or not. So right now you're tahor, you think you're tahor. But then once you find the body, hopefully the person will be alive. And that way, hopefully for him and also for you, that way you'll be tahor and you can participate in Korban Pesach. But there's a chance that you may find the body and it will be dead. And then sadly for him and also for you, you will be tameh and not be able to. But since right now the likelihood is that you'll be tahor, you can participate. If someone that was in jail and the government said, we will let you out of jail later on the 14th afternoon. So right now you're in jail and you can't get there. You have to eat it in Jerusalem and the jail is outside Jerusalem. So right now there's no way for you to get there. But the likelihood is that you will get out of jail and get to Jerusalem. So they can others can do shechita for you. Someone who's sick or old. Right now they are able to eat, but there's a chance that they may become sicker, and then they will not be able to eat a kezait of meat. So, nevertheless, shochatin alehen. We hope that they will remain. They will not get worse. They will remain somewhat healthy and be able to eat. So they're all good. However, there is some limitations on them. Al kulam and shochatin alehen. Asman. However, they should not be the only person participating in that registered for that Korban Pesach, because there is a chance that they will be ineligible. And if they're ineligible, then we're going to have to burn that Pesach. So neither as an individual nor as a group, you shouldn't do a Korban Pesach for 10 people who currently are in jail, right? Because maybe they'll get out, but maybe they won't get out. So you should involve other people that are for sure will be okay. And that way, even if the person remains in jail, the Korban Pesach itself will be valid and edible by others. Shema yaviu Pesach lidei pisul. We don't want them to invalidate the entire Korban Pesach. Lefichach, im era bahen pisul peturin milasot Pesach sheni. In all these cases, since at the time that they performed the Korban Pesach, they were eligible, right? They were healthy enough to eat. So even if they became sicker later, nevertheless, the Korban is valid and it was done on their behalf. So they fulfilled their mitzvah of Korban Pesach in Nisan, so they do not have to do Pesach Sheni. Chutz min hamefakech bagal shu tameh metechilato, except for the one that's looking for the body, because he's walking on top of the rubble and the tumah of the body goes all the way up, even if he's not touching it directly. And so that person, if it turns out that the person they were looking for has died, then that would mean that they probably died even before they prepared Korban Pesach. So that person, the searcher, was already tameh, and so he was ineligible at the time of the slaughter. So that person never actually got to do the Korban Pesach at all. So he would, in some cases, have to do Pesach Sheni. Gemara will elaborate further. Gemara. Amar Abba bar Huna, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Lo shanu ela bet hasurin de goy. Abba bet hasurin Israel, shohatin bifnei asmom. Okay, the limitation that we brought in the Mishnah that said that if you should not make a korban pesach only for someone or a group of people that are in jail, because who knows if they'll really get out or not. That's only talking about if it's a jail that's run by the non-Jewish government. Then we don't know if we can trust them. They said they can go out, but maybe they'll change their mind. But if it's a Jewish jail, like today in modern day Israel, right? If someone's a criminal, they go to jail. They're jailed by Jews, and so the Jews and they say you can go out. Then you can be sure that they will really let you out. And in that case, you can do the Korban Pesach even on your own with no other non-free people in the group. Because once they promised, we can rely on it because remnant of Israel will not speak lies. All right, that would be actually appropriate. You know, he was bound in jail and now he's free. He can really celebrate Korban Pesach, right, as experiencing what it's like to be newly free. So it might be even better for him. אמר רב חיסדא, הדה אמרת בית האסורים דגויים לא מרן אלא חוץ לחומת בית פגה, אבל לפנים מחומת בית פגה שוחטין עליו בפני עצמו. מה טעמה אפשר דאמתו לה ואכיל לה. And even when we talked about the non-Jewish jail, that's only if it's a jail that's outside of Jerusalem, which is defined as outside the wall of a place called Bet Pageh. Bet Pageh was a village that's adjacent to Jerusalem, but that had a wall and eventually became part of and attached to Jerusalem. However, if the jail is within the walls of Bet Pageh, and certainly if it's in Jerusalem proper, then you can do shechita for him, even if it's even if it's run by non-Jews, because even if he stays in jail, you could still bring him Korban Pesach in jail. There's no reason why someone in jail can't eat Korban Pesach. The only problem is he's not in Jerusalem. If he's in Jerusalem, fine, that'll be his jail meal. If they allow people to bring him food, and that would be okay. All right, lefichach imera. So therefore, if disqualification happened, the people on this list do not bring Korban Pesach Sheni, because they were eligible at the time of Shechita and Zerika. Amar Abba bar Hana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Lo shanu ela gal agol. So regarding the person who's searching for a body, and he's the exception. He does not bring Pesach. He is not exempt from Pesach Sheni, because he may have been tameh during the Korban Pesach Rishon, because he's searching for it. If it turns out that it was in fact a dead body, then he was already tameh. So this only applies to if the pile of stones was big round pile of stones, because in that case, generally, a person starts searching from the top. He climbs up to the top, and he's standing on the whole thing. So if there was a body anywhere in there, he did stand on it, and he definitely became tameh before the Korban Pesach. Haval agal aroch patur milasot pesach sheni. But let's say if it's a long a pile of stones, right, that goes right many feet long, and so now he's starting from the beginning and going, taking out the stones one by one. In that case, he was not on top of all of them, so it's likely that even if the person was found not to be alive, it's likely that he was never actually standing directly on top of the body. So therefore, at the time that they did Korban Pesach, he was probably tahor. So in that case, he does not have to do Pesach Sheni. Ema tahor haya b'shat shechita. Right, during when they did shechita, he probably was tahor. Tanya namehachi. We have another braita that proves that is in fact the case. Rabbi Shimon ben Oshel, Rabbi Yochanan ben Berak omer mefakech bagal itim. Paturitim chayav, someone who is searching for, who is uncovering stones, searching for a body. Sometimes they do not have to do Pesach Sheni. Sometimes they do have to perform Pesach Sheni. Kesad galagolim said to matachtav chayav. If it's a big round mound of stones, chayav, because he's on top of everything. So if there was anybody there, he was definitely on top of it. Gal aroch v'nimset tumat tachtav patur. But if it's long, narrow, then patur. Ema toraya b'shat shechita. Then he was not on top of the whole thing, and at the time when they did Korban Pesach, he's probably okay. All right, next Mishnah. En shochatin ta Pesach al hayachid Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot be a group of one. You can't be even if you have a good appetite and you can eat a whole sheep. You don't make korban Pesach only for one person. Yeah, you got to be part of a group. But Rabbi Yosef says fine, right? Even just one person, you want to be alone, you can do it. And the flip side, if you have 100 people, but the 100 people cannot eat an olive size, then no good. So you see, it's not about the number of people. If you have one person and he can eat the whole thing, that's fine. If you have 100 people and they will not be able to eat the whole thing, or alternatively, that no one in the group can eat a whole kezayit, even if together they can consume the whole thing by everybody having half a kezayit, no good, right? So it's not about the number of people. It's really just about how much each one can eat. Now, although all these three groups of people can join in a korban, but there has to be men in the group also. You cannot have a group that's only women, slaves, and minors. The Gemara will discuss: is it all women or women and slaves? What if it's is it all the combination of all three or each individually? And we'll see why. Well, how do we know? What's the source for the biyuda that you cannot be alone in bringing korban pesach? A pasuk in Devarim that's actually talking about centralization of worship. That the next word is ba'achad she'arecha. So it's that really do not make a korban pesach in one of your gates in one of your cities. Rather, you have to bring it to the central place, to the Mishkan. Everyone has to bring to the Mishkan. But if we just repunctuate it and take off the word bisharecha, then you can read it as you cannot make korban pesach be'achad, alone. That's how he learns it. If you can eat the whole thing, then it's fine. You can be alone. If there are 10 people and you're not able to eat it, then no good. So here it's similar. The Mishnah said 100. Here he says 10. So now Rabbi Yosef, we challenge him. What is he going to do with the word one? Okay, it's really not such a question because it was very far from the Pashat to begin with. But so that's really what he answers. Darash Rabbi Shimon, the Tanya Rabbi Shimon Omer, Minayin lezobechet pisro bebamat yachid, b'shat isur habamot shehu belo ta'aseh, Tamod Omar lo tuchal lizboch et haPesach be'achad she'arecha. Right, Rabbi Shimon. Remember this, that Rabbi Yosef follows Rabbi Shimon. And Gemara later is going to make reference to this, right? So they're a pair. So he says, how do you know that someone who makes a korban pesach on his own bama? A bama is a high place. It means that in your backyard, on your roof, you go and build a mizbeach. This is what a mizbeach looked like. Had corners that you'd sprinkle the blood on. So if you go and make your own at a time when it's prohibited, there was a time when it was permitted. Before they built the Mishkan, in Shiloh, everyone could make their own bamot. But once the Mishkan was made, and then permanently, once the Bet HaMikdash was built, and no one's allowed to have a bama anymore. So at that time, if someone does make their own and performs Korban Pesach in their backyard, how do you know that that's a lo taseh? Because the pasuk in Devarim, right? You may not do it in one of your cities. Okay, that's actually the peshat, the plain meaning of the pasuk. Yachol af peshat heter bamot ken tamod lomar be'achad she'arecha lo amru ela b'shah shekol yisrael nichnasin b'sha'ar echad. Okay, what about when bamot were permitted? Right before the Mishkan was, or between the one Mishkan and the other. How do you know that in that case, can it be that would be prohibited? No, be'achad she'arecha, only when all of Israel is going into one gate. That's what he does with the achad she'arecha. So when there is centralization, one place, one Bet HaMikdash, then it's permitted. But otherwise, it would be prohibited. Otherwise, it would be permitted. And so that's what Rabbi Yosef does with that pasuk. He leaves it alone as the peshat. But Rabbi Yehuda, okay, Rabbi Yehuda, who used the word ahat to teach that you cannot perform it singly. How does he learn the law of centralization? He learns two things from the pasuk, right? He's able to learn two things. Rabbi Yosef, Usually the Gemara doesn't, but Bavli does not like learning two things from pasuk. So this is an interesting case. Rabbi Yosef mimai delachi dekamar Rabbi Shimon dilma ka'amar Rabbi Yehuda hu de'ata. So now, question on Rabbi Shimon: why doesn't he agree with the way Rabbi Yehuda read it? How does he know to read it the way he read it? Amalach lasa kadatech dehaketib ish lefi ochlo. No, he doesn't want to use achat sharecha to mean that you can eat it singly, because he has another pasuk, this one from Shemot Yud Bet, that says ish lefi ochlo. Each person according to what they can eat. Ish is single. Is a single person. So you see that Rabbi Shimon says one person, if he can eat the whole thing, that's fine. He can bring Korban Pesach on his own. Good. So now we have the Pesukim. Okay, well now we're going to have a contradiction. Mi amar Rabbi Yehuda en shochatin Pesach al yachid. Is that true? Rabbi Yehuda said that you cannot make Korban Pesach with just one person in the group. Or minhu isha barishon shochatin aleh bifnei asma. Let's say a woman alone wants to make her own Korban Pesach with nobody else. She has a good appetite. She is permitted. That's what it says in the Baraita. That's true for Pesach Rishon. Pesach Sheni, she has to be part of a group. She cannot do her own. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And he's saying, even regarding a woman, she can make her own Korban Pesach for Pesach Rishon. So certainly a man could also do so. No, you have the wrong girsa. Don't say bifnei asma as a single person, but change it to a nun. It's plural. He was actually teaching that a group of women can make their own Korban Pesach, but that can't just be one person, because one man, one woman cannot do Korban Pesach according to the Yehuda. Hold on, now you reinterpret it that way, and you're going to run into another problem. Can you really make a group that's made up of only women to make a Korban Pesach? Mishnah just now, we just read it, says you cannot make a group of women, servants, or children. Right? Doesn't that mean that each one separately, there cannot be a group of all just women, or a group of just servants, or a group of children? So that goes against your reinterpretation of the previous Baraita. No, what the Mishnah meant is you cannot make a group of all these three together, but each one alone would be okay. Why not these together? Nashim va'abadim mishum tiflut. Women and servants, because it will lead to mixed dancing. Literally, this is, they'll be too frivolous. Kitanim va'abadim mishum perisuta. Children and servants together, no one's going to make sure that they're keeping their moral compass there, so that can lead to promiscuity, homosexual behavior. Okay, so that's why altogether is not good, but if it was only women or only slaves, that would be okay. Gufa. Now that you mentioned this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda here regarding women doing their own, so now we're going to go back and cite the full Baraita that actually shows that there's three different opinions in this regard. Isha barishon shochatin aleh bifnei asma. So Pesach Rishon, now we explained that this is talking about a group of women that's okay. A group of women can do Pesach Rishon because they're chayavot. Basheni osin ota tefila la'acharim. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. But Pesach Sheni, if they didn't do Pesach Rishon, they're not so much chayavot in Pesach Sheni. So they can't do it on their own, but they can join a group of others and with men, and that way and join Pesach Sheni. That's Rabbi Yehuda. He's like the in between opinion. Rabbi Yosef Omer. Isha basheni shochatin aleha bifnei asma ve'en tzarich lomar barishona. Rabbi Yosef is the most, we could call him pro-feminist. He says that Pesach Sheni, a woman can do on her own, and of course, Pesach Rishon. So he says both Rishon and Sheni, women can do on their own, on her own. So Rabbi Yosef would therefore say it's basically the same law as men. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Isha barishon osin ota tefila la'acharim, basheni en shochatin aleha kol ikar. Rabbi Shimon limits the woman's participation the most, the biggest limit, and says in the first Rishon, in Pesach Rishon, they cannot make their own. They can join in with a group of men. And Pesach Sheni, they cannot do at all. They can't even join in. They're totally not Pesach Sheni is not. They can't do Pesach Sheni, so they can't even eat it. Nothing. Okay, so that's the least, and so the Biudah is in the middle. Now, B'mai Kami Palge, we're going to go through each opinion and figure out how they interpret the Pisukim as proofs. Rabbi Yehuda Sabar b'michsat nefashot afilu nashim. Since pasuk in Shemot Yud Bet said you have to register for a korban according to the number of nefashot. Nefashot is we understand as a nekeva, and that would include women. So since it says nefashot, and this is Pesach Rishon, so even women are allowed to make their own korban Pesach if they want. Now you'll say, well, the Pesach Sheni is usually the same as Pesach Rishon for most things. Kitib chet'o yisa ha'ishahu. Now the pasuk in Bimidbar 9 that legislates Pesach Sheni says, if someone didn't do the Pesach Rishon and they should have, they had no reason to, then they bear their sins. And it says there, ha'ish hahu, if they neglected to bring the Pesach Sheni. So you see that it's only an ish who gets a punishment for not bringing Pesach Sheni when he should have. Ish in, isha la. So therefore, a woman who does not have a chance to do Pesach Rishon, she was teme'ah, she does not have a makeup for Pesach Sheni. And that's where they learn it from Bemidbar. Wait a second, if she's excluded from Pesach Sheni, then she should not even be able to join. But Rabbi Yehuda said she can join a group of men doing Pesach Sheni, so why is that? Okay, there are other pasuk in Bemidbar 9 that says all the laws of second Pesach Sheni are the same as Pesach Rishon. Okay, so that at least gives some leeway to say, yes, a woman can join in. They don't have the same full obligation like men, so they cannot do it on their own. Okay, so that's how Rabbi Yehuda deals with the Pesukim. Rabbi Yosef, my Tama, Rabbi Yosef is the one that said that basically their obligation is the same as men. My Tama, dichti barishon b'michsat nefashot. So he has the same pasuk. V'afilu isha b'michsat nefashot. The word nefesh is nekeva, so that includes women also. Uchti b'pesach sheni v'nichreta nefesh ahi be'ameha. And Pesach Sheni also they're chayavot because it says the word nefesh, right? A person that doesn't do korban Pesach Sheni when they should have gets karet and says nefesh, so that includes women. Nefesh v'afilu nashim. Okay, what's the big guy going to do with the word ha'ish that the Yehuda used to limit Pesach Sheni to women? No, ish is not as opposed to a woman, but rather ish as opposed to a child, right? Adult as opposed to a child. That if a child should have done Korban Pesach Sheni and didn't, they do not get karet, or they should have done it, but they don't get the punishment of karet. All right, so he's able to explain all the Pesukim. And now, Rabbi Shimon, the last opinion, that he's the most, excludes women the most. Ketib barishon ish. Ish in, isha la. There is a pasuk that says ish. We're not sure what pasuk he's talking about. We'll figure that out in a second. Now, maybe you'll say that a woman cannot even join Pesach Rishon. No, the word b'michsat nefashot that the previous two Tanaim used to say that women can totally participate, he doesn't use for full participation, but he does say that they can join in to a group of men. Now, so how about the second one? Can they participate in a group of men for Pesach Sheni, like they can do for Rishon? There's a pasuk that limits them. Dichtib chet'o yisa ha'ish. Ish in isha la, the same pasuk that Rabbi Yehuda quoted, right, in Bemidbar, that someone who should have done Pesach Sheni and doesn't gets ikaret, and it says they're ish, so only a man, not a woman, and that's why they're totally excluded. Women are totally excluded from Pesach Sheni. Wait, so and what is this pasuk excluding them from? If it's excluding them from the full obligation of Pesach Sheni. Wait, women can't even do Pesach Rishon. So of course they can't do Pesach Sheni on their own. So rather it's excluding them from even joining with another group. And that's why they can join a group for Pesach Rishon, but not for Pesach Sheni. Now, my ish tekama Rabbi Shimon. You said they exclude women because of the word ish. Which ish, right? It comes up a lot of times. That every man should go and take and choose a lamb designated as Korban Pesach. No, we need that ish for a different reason. Ish, not a man, not as opposed to a woman, but man as opposed to a child. A child cannot go and designate an animal, a lamb, to be Korban Pesach. So that he can't be talking about that ish. Rather, ish lefi ochlo. So maybe it's talking about the next pasuk in Shemot Yud Bet. Each person each man according to what he can eat. Remember, I told you to remember the pairing here before, right? Right. So we beforehand we used ish to say that this is talking about a single individual that we said it can be. He can be do a Korban Pesach on his own. And so since Rabbi Yosef follows Rabbi Shimon, makes sense Rabbi Shimon will follow Rabbi Yosef. So both of them would use ish for that reason. And so Rabbi Shimon here, he can't use this ish to say only men and not women. Because they needed to say that a single person can make a Korban Pesach. Rabbi Shimon can answer. We'll learn two things from here, because if it was just to teach that a single person can make one, then it would have just said lefi ochlo, my ish, but it adds the word ish lefi ochlo. So there's really two phrases that we can use to derive two laws, shemat mina tarteh, and that's how he knows that only a man can make Korban Pesach, and not a woman. They can join in, but they can't make their own. All right. Now, Keman Azla Hada Rabbi El-Azar. We have a statement of Rabbi El-Azar. Whose opinion is he following? Isha barishon choba, basheni reshut v'dohay et Shabbat. A woman is obligated in Pesach Rishon. Pesach Sheni is optional, and it overrides Shabbat. Now, question, amay doche et Shabbat. What do you mean by he can override Shabbat? If it's optional, Pesach Sheni is optional, then how can it override Shabbat? Ela ema basheni reshut ubarishona choba v'dochet Shabbat. So okay, we didn't read it right. The dochet Shabbat is going on the Rishon. So since a woman must do Korban Pesach Rishon, then you even override Shabbat in order to prepare it, like if the 14th is on Shabbat. Okay, so whose opinion is this? Keman, Rabbi Yehuda. Yes, that would be the opinion, the first opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that they can do their own Korban Pesach Rishon, but not Sheni. Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, en osin chabura shekulam gerim, shema yedakteku bo v'ibu lidei pesul. Very interesting line, right? You cannot, converts can join Korban Pesach, but they can't be, the whole group can't be converts. Why? Because, the zeal of converts, the converts are so meticulous that they're going to look for everything, and then they're going to be over meticulous, and they're going to find things for reasons to disqualify that are not necessary. And so, you can't leave it all only to converts. They're too careful. All right, so that's pretty interesting. That a lot of times actually we do see that converts are the most zealous for things. Tenoda banan Pesach masa umaror barishon chova mikan ve'elach reshut. Okay, a bit of a cryptic baraita that says Pesach masa maror for on the Rishon, meaning the first night of the holiday, are obligatory. Okay, that's easy enough. We know we have to eat all these three things on the first night. But after that, reshut. What do you mean after that reshut? What Pesach is there? Rabbi Shimon omer banashim chova ubanashim reshut. But it's machloket. Rabbi Shimon says for men it's chova, nashim reshut. So I guess he means on the first night. For men it's chova. For nashim, even on the first night it's reshut. And afterwards, for everyone would agree that's reshut. Okay, we're really not clear what this means. Ahaya ka'eh. What exactly are they referring to? Ilema a Pesach. Pesach kol shiba mi'ika. If you're saying that the reshut is going on Pesach, wait, there is no Pesach on the other nights. Why would you say that afterwards is a shoot, and women don't have to do it after. There is no korban pesach. Vela masa umaror. If you mean that afterwards, in other words, you only have to eat masah and maror on the first night. You don't have to eat masah and maror on the rest of them. But then, what are you going to do with the rest of the pasuk? That for women, it's reshut even on the first night, right? Is that what Rabbi Shimon would say? And let Rabbi Shimon hadamar Rabbi Elazar nashim chayavot b'achilat masah devar Torah shenemar lo tochal alav chamesh shivat yamim tochal alav masot. כל שישנו בבעל תאכל חמץ, ישנו בקום אכול מסע. הנשים, או ישנם בבעל תאכל חמץ, ישנם בקום אכול מסע. Okay, this is a proof that women must eat masah, and it seems that everybody would agree with this, even though it's taught just by the Rabbi Elazar. How do we learn it? Because the pasuk says, do not eat chametz for 7 days, eat upon it masot. So the pasuk relates the prohibition of chametz to the obligation of masah. So even though eating masah is a misvat aseh shazaman gerama, right? It applies a certain time and something that you have to do, but they certainly are obligated in the law taseh. So therefore, the juxtaposition here teaches that anyone who may not eat chametz also must eat matzah. So a woman obviously cannot eat chametz, that's the lo ta'aseh, and so therefore they must eat matzah. So what, is Rabbi Shimon disagreeing with this? Because that's what it would sound like if you say me'echan ve'elach reshut, that's talking about matzah maror. Rabbi Shimon says even on the first day, nashim don't have to eat matzah, but that can't be what he means. Ela ema Pesach Masa Umaror Barishon Hova. So this is really the right way to understand it. On the first day of Pesach, everyone has to eat Pesach Masa Umaror. Ma'kan ve'elach reshut. On the rest of the days, then this you don't have to eat. There is no Pesach, and you don't even have to eat Masa Umaror. Right? You can eat Masa all week long, but there's no obligation to eat Masa. That's Tanakama. And Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon Pesach, Banashim Chova, Benashim Reshut. And so he says, no, his clause is only going on Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach on the first day is Reshut for women. That's what his opinion was before, right? Rabbi Shimon was the last opinion that was the most exclusionary of women. And so he says, women, even on the first, do not have to eat Korban Pesach. They can if they want. But Masah, that for sure they have to do. He agrees with Rabbi Elazar that women are chayavot in Masah, and so this is good applicable today. We don't have Korban Pesach, so that's a moot point. But the eating Masah, for sure, everyone is obligated in that mitzvah. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen.